Are you ready to hear the word? Dr. Wakefield is one that many of you already know just because of his ministry here in the local area. I had the opportunity to have lunch, and he says, just call me Andy. I had a chance to have lunch with Andy Sunday. I got a chance to hear a little bit about his life, and I just love who the man is. He is a MK. You know what an MK is, don't you? He's a missionary kid. He grew up in the Philippines where his mom and dad were called to minister. And he dealt with a call in his own life and following after Jesus Christ. And following after that call, he went on to Wake Forest and got a degree at Wake Forest. And the room got real quiet. Oh, there it is. Okay. And then went on and got a degree at South Seminary and his PhD at Duke University. Oh, that's a little more. He is serving right now at Campbell University as the Go ahead and give Campbell a big hand. Oh, woo. He's a Dean of Divinity there, and we are just so thrilled that he's here. He also has served in at least 10 different churches in the role of an interim pastor, and he's serving right now and ministering to a church in Anger, helping them get their feet on the ground and being involved in mission experiences in the area. I'm so excited that he's coming to bring the message for our homecoming here this year. He has a heart of a missionary. He has the experience of a pastor, and he has the understanding of a scholar. So I want you to make Brother Andy real welcome as he comes up and share the word with us.
Thank you all so much. It is so good to be here. Sound better if I turn on the mic? All right, there I am. Okay. It is so good to be here with you, and I am so pleased to bring you greetings from Campbell University Divinity School and to celebrate with you today as you celebrate 191 years of history. I was a little confused when I came in. I thought, well, which table am I supposed to sit at? And somebody said, well, just sit at table number 191. It took me a while to figure it out, but I finally figured it out. It is a great pleasure to celebrate the history of this church with you, and it's a great pleasure to look forward with you to an exciting new future, to what God is doing in your midst, and to what God wants to do in your midst. And I am so pleased to be here today to celebrate with you as you look forward in that way. I want to bring you a very practical word as you engage in this new venture. It's a very practical word, and I have to say, and I hope you will forgive me for saying it this way, but I have to say that sometimes what we read in the Bible doesn't seem altogether practical. Now, I know you're kind of wondering, where is he going with this? But there are some words in the Bible that some of us, at least, don't really practice in a tangible, concrete way. Let me give you an example. Jesus said, if your hand offends you, cut it off. Let me see a show of hands. All right. There's a word from Jesus that we say, that's a great word. It's a great spiritual word. It's something we need to take seriously, but we're not going to take that as a practical word. That's something else. Or what about when Jesus said, love your enemies? Or turn the other cheek. Now, you know, turning the other cheek, I can do that if it's just a slap. But what if it's a lawsuit? Or what if it's grave injustice? How do I turn the other cheek then? And we struggle with this. How do we put these words into practice? And we could go on and on. Lay down your life for one another. Forgive and do not ask back. Forgive someone 70 times 7. I think my wife is up to 443, which means I only have 37 more forgivenesses left to go. Well, sometimes we struggle to find a really practical word from the Bible, a really practical word from Jesus, but I have for you a very practical word, a very down-to-earth, tangible, concrete word that I think we need to hear today as we think about moving into a new venture of serving God. Let me read for you from Mark chapter 8, and I'm going to start with verse 34 and go to verse 38. Here it is. And having called together the crowd, together with his disciples, he said to them, "If someone wishes to follow after me, let him deny himself and take up his cross, and then let him follow me. For whosoever wishes to save his life must lose it. Whoever will lose his life for my sake and for the sake of the gospel will save it. For what does it profit someone to gain the whole world and to lose his own life? And what will a person give in exchange for his life? For whoever is ashamed of me and of my words in this adulterous and sinful generation, I, the Son of Man, will be ashamed of him whenever I come in the glory of my Father, together with the holy angels." And this is the word of God for us today. If you want to save your life, you have to lose it. Does that sound practical? Does that sound concrete? Does that sound tangible? Or does that sound like the same kind of thing when it says, if your hand offends you, cut it off? We say, oh, that's nice. That's a great spiritual word, but I'm not really going to do that. Does Jesus really mean for us to lose our lives? What is he talking about? If we're going to save our lives, we have to lose it. If we're going to save, let me get a little personal here. If we're going to save this church, if this church is going to flourish, if this church is going to survive another 191 years, if it's going to be strong in another 191 years, is Jesus saying, is he saying that? Is he saying we have to somehow lose our life if we want to save it? I don't know about you, but I'm not entirely sure that this sounds very practical. But then again, how many times have you heard someone say, you know, I finally found love only when I stopped looking for it? Ever heard that? I finally found love only when I stopped looking for it. And I wonder if that gives us a glimpse of the fact that what Jesus is saying here is in fact the way that things really work in the world. Only when we are willing to lose it do we find it. Only when we stop looking for love. Because you see, when we're looking for love, when we're trying to find someone who's going to love us, when we're out there desperately beating the bushes for somebody. Now, I was fortunate in my case because you all were praying for me and you didn't know it. How many of you have ever prayed for the missionaries on the missionary prayer calendar? Oh, I want to give you a personal word of thanks. I met my wife, Olivia, after she had just gotten back from the mission field. She'd been 2 years as a missionary. She was on the missionary prayer calendar, and I met her on her birthday when you were praying for her, and she met me. And I have to tell you, that's pretty much what it took. You see, when you're out there looking for love, and you're out there beating the bushes, and you're out there worrying about trying to get others to love you, and you're worried about all the things that go with that, you become more and more and more unlovable, don't you? But when you are willing to give love away, when you are willing to love without worrying about how much someone loves you, when you're willing to worry about someone else's happiness instead of worrying about your own, then you start to become very lovable. Guess what? These words of Jesus aren't just pie in the sky. They describe something that is very basic to the way the world actually works. When we are trying to find something, when we're trying to save it, when we're trying to preserve it, when all of our energy is focused on trying to keep it safe, we're losing it. And when we're willing to give it away, that's when things can happen. Possibilities can happen. I've certainly experienced this over 25 years of what you might call being a professional speaker. I've served in churches. I've taught in schools. I serve as dean of the Divinity School now. And in 25 years of speaking, I've often had people say, well now, don't you get nervous up there? And the answer is, yes, I do. And you want to know when I get the most nervous? It's when I'm worried about whether my tie is straight. And I'm thinking, they're looking at me, and my tie may not be straight. I once taught an entire class. I came in late. Well, I have to tell you, I was driving up to class. I was getting ready to teach a Greek class, and I was driving up late, and because I was running late, I was tying my tie at the stoplights. So I'd get to a stoplight, and I'd start to tie, and then I'd go to the next stoplight, and I'd tie some more. And I got to school, and I went in, rushed in, got there just on time, taught the entire class. And I'm thinking to myself, you know, even though I was late, I feel like I'm looking pretty suave here. And lo and behold, at the end of the class, I reached up to adjust my glasses, and I brushed my collar, which was still sticking straight up. That did not do a lot for my confidence. It's when I'm worried about things like that. What are people seeing? How are they looking at me? And you know what? It really isn't so much the tie and the collar and spots on my shirt or things like that that really bother me. It's when I'm really looking over my own shoulder, worrying about whether I am doing all the things that I wanted to do, or whether I'm really presenting myself well, or am I really making the kind of impression that I want to make? And when I do that, I find myself at the most fumbly, the most ill at ease, the most ineffective in my speaking. You know when I'm most effective? It's when I don't care how I look, because I'm focused on the need in front of me. Because I'm focused on what I want to say to people and what I feel like people are needing to hear. And whenever I'm not worried about me, but I'm ready to give it all away so that I can try to say something to others, that's when I feel like I am most confident and most comfortable. You know what? Jesus' words sound like maybe they're really practical after all. When you are trying to save yourself, when your focus is on preserving yourself, when your focus is on trying to guard yourself and protect yourself, that's when you lose yourself. But when you're willing to lose yourself, give yourself away, that's when something happens. It's true of individuals. If you want to save your life, you really have to lose it. I wonder if it's true of organizations. Do organizations, companies, businesses, do they ever get so focused on saving themselves that they lose themselves? Shall we talk about a little company named Enron? That got so focused on preserving its great growth and its great status and its great stock price and its great reputation and its great wealth for its own persons, its own leaders. It got so focused on doing all the things for itself that it lost total sight of what it was doing for others. Well, you know the story. And we hear that story over and over again, don't we? Just open the paper up and look to the Wall Street section. And we'll see it again and again and again. A company that has lost its outward focus. It has lost its reason for being. Instead, it has tried to protect itself, guard itself, keep itself safe, and it has gone down. It has lost everything. Now, if it's true of individuals, and if it's true of organizations and companies, do you suppose that it's any less true of churches? Are Jesus' words practical and concrete for us as a church? For this church. For this church, as you are looking at a new venture, as you're looking back to 191 years of history that you should be proud of. Do you suppose that when Jesus says, if you seek to save your life, I hate to even say the next words, but I have to. If you seek to save your life, you will lose it